reduces the number of transactions you're doing and also clearly the hedging costs you're paying with it.
Hello and welcome to today's masterclass on the internationalization of the Chinese currency, the renminbi. My name is Brian Caplen, editor of The Banker. I'm here with Alexandra Gropp, who is the regional head of renminbi solutions Europe for Standard Chartered. And we're going to start by looking at the increasing use of the renminbi as a trade and payments currency. So Alexandra, tell us where we are in that development.
Clearly on the trade side, RMB internationalisation has made significant progress. We're seeing more and more corporates redenominating trade into RMB. We come later to the challenges, but by 2020 we see China's overall trade with the rest of the world doubling.
Yeah.
And with that we also expect trade denominated in RMB to rise to 28%, so a doubling from the total.
So 28% of a doubled figure?
Yes.
Okay, all right. But what about on the payments side? Because, I mean, the renminbi is still a much smaller currency in global payments terms, isn't it? I think it's about number 11.
Yeah, we are there or thereabouts. I think it's gone up a couple of places in recent months, but okay. Absolutely, I think compared to the dollar, euro, sterling, I think we still only have just over 1% of payments denominated in RMB globally. So there's a long way to go, but certainly the increases that we've seen in percentage terms have been very significant.
Okay, and what are the advantages for companies in doing their trade in renminbi rather than in the dollar or the euro?
One of the largest advantages that corporates increasingly sort of make use of is clearly the significantly relaxed documentation requirements that we have today following the release of Circular 168 by People's Bank of China in July last year, okay. Which basically allow payment processing before supporting documentation, trade documentation is provided, which makes cash movements a lot quicker compared to, for example, settling trade in US dollar, where this supporting documentation is still required.
Okay, and how much quicker does it make it then? I mean,
depending on the type of trade and product, we estimate 2 to 3 days in some cases. So if you do have a lot of trade with China, that really does make a difference.
All right. And what about advantages in terms of managing your sort of foreign exchange risk in your cash management?
We see importers as well as exporters into China being the biggest users of the RMB as trade currency. It allows them to centralize their FX risk away from the corporates or their counterparties onshore. Which is clearly for some a huge advantage, because for some of the corporates onshore it's actually very expensive to hedge their FX risk, and that can also lead to trade terms that are less advantageous from the offshore company's point of view. In the sense that they
charge you a bit for FX volatility.
Absolutely, they will price in the FX risk, and sometimes also depending on how significant the FX volatility is, you might have to start renegotiating terms if between negotiating and actually doing the trade, the FX rate has moved significantly.
Okay.
So redenominating into RMB removes all those risks and creates a bit of stability, and you know, certainly in terms of managing the FX risk centrally, it reduces the number of transactions you're doing and also clearly the hedging costs you're paying with it.
Okay, so we've talked about the advantages, but what are the challenges that that companies that want to do this still face in terms of using the renminbi as a trade currency?
Some of the companies are still taking a very passive approach in terms of adopting the RMB trade currency. One of the recent surveys we've conducted with the asset also confirms that. A lot of the companies are expecting to use the RMB as a trade payments currency going forward, but clearly, the challenges that are increasingly cited are the fact that counterparties in China are often still very comfortable receiving dollars. That has to do with them actually funding themselves relatively competitively in US dollars. So there's no significant need for them to push for RMB either. Often it's also cheaper, the funding cost in dollars at the moment compared to the RMB onshore. The other challenge that corporates are facing are systems related. Adding another currency to the system, making sure that it all works smoothly is, depending on how the operations are set up, easier for some corporates than others. So a lot of the clients that we are talking to are basically going through that process of figuring out, what do I actually have to do, what do I actually have to commit in terms of resources and investment to make that change.
To change the system.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. But supposing they get all those things sorted out, I mean, what do you see as the big sort of business opportunities from being able to do trade with China in renminbi or payments in renminbi?
I think given the importance of China as an economy, the RMB as trade payments currency cannot be ignored. Trade with China, if you look at multinational companies across the board, they expect huge growth there. And with using the RMB and really embracing the RMB as trade currency, I think that opens up more opportunities with more counterparties, and transacting quicker and more efficiently, which is something that, in particular, when it comes to doing business in China, is going to be hugely important for corporates.
Okay, thank you very much. We've talked about trade. We'll come and talk about the other aspects of renminbi internationalisation in just a minute.
Thank you.